it's episode 7 of the Amiga Show. Coming up, we strap on a face mask and hit the road and go to the video games market. I give you a little tour of the Amiga Show studio. I play Slayers by Toro and have a chat with the author, Brad Pierce. And check out what stocking fillers are out for Christmas. Prepare yourself for in-vision shock. It's the Amiga Show. Indeed, and welcome to the Amiga Show. Now, first up, can I apologise for being in vision? I wouldn't normally put myself in front of the camera, but I just wanted a couple of minutes just to explain what's happened to the show over the last year. Now, midway through the year, I managed to get myself a new job, which pretty much robbed me of all my spare time and unfortunately meant that I had to put the show on a brief pause. Now, what that has allowed me to do, though, is pick up some of the bits and pieces that I was going to do during the year and sort of put it together as kind of an end of the year show. So think of it as sort of like your last day of term at school. Instead of double maths, you get to watch Airplane. Well, obviously this is much less entertaining, but you get the idea. It's going to be a slightly different format than normal, but I hope you enjoy it nevertheless. Now, part of that is going to be a behind the scenes look in the show. Now, these videos were put together for the Patreon subscribers. So I've just cut together a little selection, if you like, of bits and pieces, and hopefully you'll enjoy that. Now, speaking of patrons, obviously the Patreon channel has closed down. That's because I didn't feel that I was really able to justify running a Patreon, although I did find the encouragement from the guys who run it really invaluable. So those names are going on the bottom of the screen now, and thank you so much for your support. It really meant a huge amount. Anyway, the show goes on and it will continue into the new year, but I just want to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever is your tradition. And yeah, let's get on with the show. A quick walk from King's Cross and St Pancras stations is the Royal National Hotel, one of London's lowest achieving places to stay, but every so often it redeems itself by hosting the video games market. Queues start early, and the attendance would rank well enough to be compared to any COVID super spreading event. Many people here, myself included, come to see if there are any bargains to be had. Although they tend not to have too much Amiga stuff, there is a vast selection of console games and hardware. Lots of Japanese imports too. There was plenty of room to move around and browse. So I looked to see if I could find any Amiga games. First of all, my worst fears, the Amiga bargain bucket, like being in HMV in the late 90s. Tucked away, I did find some premium titles though. Adam's Family for 90 quid, anyone? However, eventually I did find a good stash of Amiga titles. Brian the Lion, Mortal Kombat, and Beneath a Steel Sky. But what I actually walked away with was the Atari 7800. No, not an Amiga, but pretty good. And I took it to Ant, which is the Amiga North Thames group, and quickly got the TV nearly in tune. The group on this occasion had quite an eclectic mix of machines. There was an Archimedes, not an Amiga, but pretty good. A Commodore 64C with the Ultimate 64 board, not an Amiga, but pretty good. A SAM 460 with OS 4.1, not an Amiga, but pretty good. I'm joking, it's Christmas, come on, give me a break. Still, we had fun playing with all sorts of stuff. There was even some modern gaming too. We compared the 7800 Donkey Kong Jr. with a newer C64 version, and very nice it is too, the sound being a good deal better. And just to rub salt in was the Archimedes running Xenon 2. Oh please, that's enough of that, come on. Now it's time to go behind the scenes via some clips that were originally made for the Patreon subscribers. This is the keyboard that I use on the video toaster that I make the show on. And it's been a bit problematic because it's mostly fine, but it is a little bit old, much like myself, and the B key hasn't worked since I've had it, which has not really been a problem until recently, when of course I've had to label things or even put something on the screen that uses the letter B. It just hasn't worked. So what I've had to do is take a USB key, type a file on the Mac, transfer it onto the USB key, stick it into the toaster, copy and paste it across. I mean, it has been a farce sometimes. Anyway, I finally broke, and I've taken I've taken the keyboard apart to try and fix it. So here's what happened. So here's the keyboard, and yeah, I don't know if you can hear that, but just the it felt like there was something underneath the button. So anyway, let's take this one apart, and you're just met with 1,000 screws. And just carefully taking the lid off. Now if you look underneath, you'll notice there's just dozens and dozens of resistors, and also dozens and dozens of tiny screws. So I need to remove this shield and just give the keyboard a bit of a clean. So I thought I'd remove the offending key, and sure enough the bung was sort of upside down, which I don't think helped, but certainly a little bit of cleaning fluid, just some alcohol on the pads just to help out a bit. And then it was just a case of reassembling it and trying to make sure you had the same number of screws. There, lid back on. Let's give this a go. So the big question is, does it work? And I can push B and B's happen. I'm also quite happy about this, he says, throwing to Amiga Addict magazine. There we go. So this is a magazine that's published in the UK, and I was asked to make a contribution. Check it out. How about that? So yeah, that's a little article that I wrote for the magazine, plus a little photo of yours truly there. It's just nice to be asked, you know, it's quite cool. So I was very happy about that, and that rather led me on to thinking that I should be doing a tour of the Amiga Show for you guys, which I've been meaning to do for quite a while. And so I thought I'd crack on with that. And as you see at the moment, like, most of the screens are off. Last time I did a video, you'll notice they were on. What I'd forgotten about was the fact there was so much electromagnetic interference going around that there was so much buzzing on the microphone. Anyway, screen's off right now. I'll give you a little tour of the studio, and yeah, see what you think. So this is just a look around the room, going from the audio mixer to the little sort of monitor there, the iMac, and then onto the video toaster itself, which sits inside an Amiga 2000, and there's its keyboard. And those who are curious, this is just a video disc recorder, which sometimes comes in handy. This is the main broadcast monitor that I use, and going up you'll see some preview monitors there. That bit in the middle is actually a video processing unit that allows me to get all the images into the machine. The toaster output then goes into the iMac, where it is recorded via a Blackmagic shuttle device, and then I just loop that through just composite video into this monitor so I can see if it looks okay. Now on top you'll notice a small camera. This is actually a GH2, and it's very handy, and it actually times the whole room together, which is very useful. And then we've got an audio mixer with clearly not enough inputs on it. Now if we have a look behind the toaster, you'll see this is where the video discs sit, like it's been disemboweled. This is actually the one that went wrong the other day, but at least it's cool on the outside, I suppose. And here it is, all opened up in its glory. Now the first thing you'll notice is there's an awful lot of ribbon cables. So yeah, these are all basically SCSI cables, or yeah, in fact they're all SCSI cables apart from the one for the floppy drive there. So let's try and clear out some of those so we can see what's going on a bit better. Okay, so that's a little bit better. So let's take a look just at the boards inside, but just to clear these bits away. Obviously got the CD-ROM there. This is the Gotek drive, and this is the drive that actually has the audio for the show. There's no real need for it to be there, other than it just keeps it out of the way. So I've just used one of the bays for that. So this card on the left is a time-based corrector, which is used to synchronize the video going into the toaster. Now currently I'm not actually using that one because it's not quite lined up correctly, and it's slightly overkill on what I'm using at the moment. So currently all it's doing is powering up, but it has, it's there if I need it, and at the moment I don't, so I might even take it out, but yeah, I mean it's just sitting there at the moment and not connected to anything. Then next to it we have, this is actually a sound card. This is an AD, they got me 512 I think it is, and it's basically a 16-bit sound card. The reason for having this in here is because it's not currently doing a huge amount at the moment, but eventually this card will take over all the audio work for the show, which is currently being sorted out by the flyer. Next up we have this one, which is basically it converts S-video inputs into a signal that the video toaster and the flyer can recognize. So you can see this rainbow colored cable goes from the YC converter into what's the flyer card, and then that cable runs along and goes into the video toaster. Now this card, it's pretty difficult to see, but this is the flyer, and that is effectively the video editing part of the system. It has 3 SCSI channels, 2 of which are dedicated to video and 1 of which is for audio, and it has all the real-time encoding and playback needed to, well, effectively put the show together. And here is the accelerator, which is sitting in the CPU slot, and that is a Vampire A500. Now there's a lot of misunderstanding about what the Vampire is and isn't, but in its basic configuration it's an accelerator with some I/O ports and an RTG graphics. So currently the entire motherboard is being used and all these slots are fully compatible and used, so it's effectively an accelerator in this instance. The benefit of it is that it runs very cool, much cooler than say an 030 or 040 or anything else like that, so that's a big advantage. It's also a lot smaller, which gives a lot more airflow around here because this guy runs hot. This is a very hot card. In fact, it's got a whole number of heat sinks on it, so basically the more air we can get running in front of this card, the better. So the Vampire really is kind of the ideal solution, I think, for this kind of a setup. And that basically is the 2000 that puts the show together. I mean, there's lots of different bits, but it's yeah, it all works together really well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Oh, as a quick aside, I recently got my hands on an A500 Plus. I really wanted to get a machine for that, particularly, in episodes to come that will feature an Amiga 500. I wanted to actually have a machine there to use and for it to seem sort of relevant. Now, of course, the 500 Plus had a battery in it, a Varta battery, of course, the dreaded Varta battery. So I actually took the bold step of opening up the machine, cutting the battery out, and yeah, it still works and it's all good. So I was pretty happy with that.
You're still here. I'm impressed. It's time to take a look at the gallery. This time we feature art from the Brassart Graphic Design School in France and can be found on Fred Fish Disc 11. Although this site is now closed, I think, it's fun to imagine this cool building full of students and an Amiga 1000 leading the way in digital art. like to submit any of your own artwork to the show, then you can get in contact on this address. Slayers of High Toro is a turn-based strategy game. Now, immediately, that would not be my first choice of game, but Brad Pierce has created a very playable yet challenging Amiga title that keeps you coming back for more, even whilst being relentlessly humiliated by a state-of-the-art AI. Yes, this might be a game for all 1 megabyte Amigas, but the underlying tech is as cutting edge as it gets. But I'm jumping ahead. Let's take a look at the box. And a shinier box would be hard to imagine if it was wrapped in aluminium foil and covered in glitter. Nicely illustrated though, with all sorts of goodies inside. This is another stellar presentation by Bitmapsoft. Their website at the bottom of the screen. Once the game is loaded, we are presented with a simple menu. Options give us some nice customization for mouse control, as well as playing colour and AI type. Enemy info is also useful, so I would recommend this selected. Hitting play displays a load of game types, far too many to go through here, but they are pretty much self-explanatory when you know the game, so let's start on the beginner stage. This gives us a nice selection of tile types. We see 4 palaces. The red flag denotes ours, as well as a character to the left. Blue tiles are water, mountains block our path, and sands can shift and devour land and pieces if left unconverted. This scaling is just for the video's benefit and not in the game. So the idea is to occupy the board with your colour. We can move our piece in any connected non-coloured block. If I click on our fort, you can see what resources we have. From left to right, we have how much gold we have available. The next is how much we'll receive on our next go, and then how much will be spent on our next turn. This is important as pieces require income to keep them alive. Currently, all I can do is add a new villager to the map at a cost of 10 gold. As a tip, occupying tiles near water can be very useful for getting income. When we can do no more, click end and get the machine to perform the other moves. As we've only moved a few spaces, our income is limited, so I can only move our little villagers to occupy more of the board. The manual makes all this very clear and goes through the very few rules that govern what piece can go where. Pieces can protect or be protected by a surrounding ring of hexagons. But ultimately, it comes down to the power of each tile. As the game goes on, bigger, more comfortable pieces come into play, including these lightsaber-wielding masters. But they require more gold for upkeep. If a kingdom becomes cut off, resources can get scarce, killing off expensive troops like this absolute disaster. Ouch. Help is at hand though. Pressing help gives you an on-screen bar of the power of any tile, allowing you to prepare for the next move or anticipating an attack, and is very handy. And attacked you will be. This game is aggressive and it wants your land. Full credit to the ruthless AI that will stop at nothing, although it can be dialed up or down. A game of snap indeed. Cheeky. If like me, you'll die a lot. I mean a lot. Then one day, you'll get a breakthrough, and you win, and my goodness me, victory tastes so sweet after all that adversity. I was so happy. AI surrenders. Too right it does. This game is great fun. Nicely presented, not overly designed or coloured, but with a neat modern touch. The music is also really nice and fits in well. Neat features such as save game state is handy for when you're learning the ropes, as well as being able to undo previous moves. Really shows what can be done in a contemporary release when a little thought is used. There's even a great how to play video that Brad has put together. I would definitely recommend taking a quick look at that. details on the screen below. This game comes highly recommended, a post-Sunday lunch kind of a game if ever there was one. Not content with just creating this game, Brad took a moment to chat with me about it and his experience of coding on the Amiga.
So I had an Amiga as my first computer. I know that perhaps dates me, but it was amazing. I had the pleasure of getting an A1200, which was just phenomenal to go from having no computer to this like amazing machine. It wasn't the most straightforward machine to program, unfortunately. So at the time, I was sort of introduced to programming by my cousin, who actually worked for Microsoft as a coder. And then when I went to uni, then the programming came back in full force. And so I started to learn Python and then C++. And then I haven't looked back. I've done a lot of systems programming. So I am a neuroscientist, that's my training. And to work in a laboratory, you often need to program the whole stack. And then the Amiga, you look at the reference manual and like you have complete control, right? You can do whatever you want. And so that was, I just couldn't resist.
So, Slayers of High Toro, what's it about?
A game of, I would say, intense strategy. So there was a game a long while ago for Windows called Slay. And the core rules, or the majority of the core rules, are based on Slay. And so it's fair to say that, I should give Sean O'Connor, who's the original architect, sort of heads up on that. But we've extended the game, or I've extended the game, to have different rules. And so essentially you control a number of kingdoms, and you've got to exterminate all your opponents by taking over the map, like the world map. And there are different scenarios and different tiles with different rules. So, for example, deserts are different than just normal tiles, that they spread and destroy your kingdom. And water tiles, if you're near them, they can bring you revenue from passing boats. So you have lots of different tiles, types that affect the rules. And your goal is to utilize the surroundings to take over the map. And the real fun comes with understanding the sort of geography of your map, and then taking over the game from there. And we put a lot of work into procedural generation. So there's 6, 5, 5, 3, 5 maps per game type. So with like 10 game types, there's a huge array of procedurally generated maps to play.
This is probably the first game to use machine learning to drive the game's AI. Can you explain a bit more about that?
Yes, so this was one of the things that I found, that the rule set is incredibly deep. It's as more deep than you would say chess, just by the numbers, how many tiles you have, how many different pieces that you have. I wanted to build the game. I wanted to build it for Amiga. I had a real clear vision of what I wanted to do. And so it's very challenging to get an opponent, an AI opponent, that's going to play you in a fun and challenging way with so limited resources. So what I did was I used my desktop machine, and then I used an algorithm, a convolutional neural network algorithm, to learn essentially the map states and predict the next map state. And so then I was able to essentially shrink that algorithm down into a format that could be put on the Amiga. One of the things that the Amiga is a powerhouse at doing, and it does it for graphics purposes most of the time, is it uses the blitter to do these Boolean operations. These, you'd say, a cookie cut operation, where you have a mask and you blit your sprite onto the screen using that mask. Well, what you can do is you don't have to just blit onto the screen. You can blit anywhere in memory you want, providing that it's chip memory. And so I use the blitter to do some of the calculations on the maps. So if I need to isolate where pieces are, I use that Boolean logic to do that fast. And so one of the reasons that the AI actually runs quite fast on the Amiga is it can utilize what would necessarily be graphics hardware for computation in the same way that you would do on a modern computer.
Well, Brad, thanks so much for your time. It's a really cracking game, and congratulations on getting the game published.
Thank you, and thank you for your time.
Now let's take a look at 3 festive games for your seasonal enjoyment. First up, we have Nivrig's Turbo Santa, a reworking of Turbo Tomato with a Christmassy theme. Running around, you chuck presents at characters, much like a Hermes delivery simulator. Actually, this plays a lot like Food Fight and is a nice slice of fast, arcadey fun. Yeah, it does sound familiar. Anyone who's played Nivrig's Dodgy Rocks will find it plays familiarly too. Dodge and bash your way around snowballs for point scoring glory. For some reason, the music in game was a bit clunky, so maybe just sound effects is a better bet. Still, it's great fun. Lastly, my favourite. While we patiently wait for Super Delivery Boy, we get The Holiday Shift, a simple one-screen platformer. Deliver presents whilst avoiding nuts. Sounds a lot like Christmas to me. It looks and plays great and comes highly recommended for a quick game or two. All these games available from itch.io, where you can download for any amount you like. And that's it for this episode. I hope to bring you more Amiga Show in the new year. But until then, I'll leave you with a little more Super Delivery Boy The Holiday Shift. Wishing you a fun and safe holiday break. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.
Bye.